If your nervous system is overloaded, you are not making decisions. You are managing reactions. And you cannot build sustainable leverage from a reactive state because awareness without direction becomes overwhelm. Regulate first, return second, and renegotiate third. That's the order of operations. If your nervous system is overloaded, you are not making decisions. You are managing reactions. And you cannot build sustainable leverage from a reactive state. Regulation isn't just self-care. It's the first step toward sovereignty. We've talked about what happens when you hold everything together. But here's the harder truth. If you're dysregulated, you will keep rebuilding the same structure no matter how aware you are. Regulation is not softness, it's strategy. And today, we're going to talk about how regulation is the prerequisite for leverage and what that actually means structurally. If you haven't watched the last video about being essential versus being empowered, start there because this video builds directly on that video. But if what I've already shared is hitting home for you, lock in. This channel exists for Black women who are reclaiming ownership in their own lives. Subscribe if you want structural clarity and not surface level motivation. Because once you regulate, you can renegotiate. Now let's talk about why regulation comes first. When you're dysregulated, your body is in response mode. You're mentally scanning, anticipating, managing, and preventing. And that state feels productive, but it's defensive. And when you live in defense mode long enough, you stop directing your life with precision. And instead, you start maintaining it. Dysregulation narrows your options. And it's not because you're incapable, but it's because your system is prioritizing safety over strategy. And you don't negotiate well when you're overloaded. You comply. And you don't redesign systems when you're chronically exhausted. Instead, you stabilize. And stabilization can look responsible, but it rarely produces leverage. Let me make this even more clear. When your nervous system is constantly activated, then your decision-making skills shrink. You default to what keeps the peace, what avoids conflict, and what maintains stability. And that is maintenance behavior. And maintenance behavior sustains the current structure, even if the current structure is draining you. So you can know that you're overextended, you can recognize that you're absorbing way too much, and you can even see the pattern clearly. But if you're dysregulated, you will choose the familiar option because the familiar option feels safer than uncertainty. And that's not a weakness, it's biology. But biology without regulation limits authorship. A lot of women think that awareness is the breakthrough. They think, I see it now, I understand it, I know that I'm overextended. But awareness without regulation becomes frustration because you see the problem, but you don't feel safe enough to change it. So you keep participating in what you intellectually don't agree with. And that's the trap. Dysregulation keeps you compliant with systems you've already outgrown. And it's not because you agree with them, but it's because your body is trying to prevent internal collapse. Regulation isn't calming down for aesthetic reasons. It is restoring access to your full range of decision making. When you're regulated, you negotiate more clearly. You delay reactions and move with precision, and you evaluate instead of comply. That changes everything because leverage requires space, patience, clarity, and delay. Because you can't build sustainable leverage from urgency. And urgency is the default state of dysregulation. So if you're constantly overwhelmed, you will keep choosing what's immediate and not what's strategic. And that's how intelligent women remain structurally absorbed. Regulation creates the conditions for return. Return means you come back to your own internal authority, and you are no longer deciding from fear, guilt, or pressure. You are deciding from alignment. And alignment is where leverage begins. Because once you can tolerate discomfort without panicking, you can renegotiate the role you've been playing. You can say no without spiraling. You can slow down without collapsing internally. And you can slowly begin to breathe within your own life. That is the beginning of sovereignty. And once you start seeing where you're dysregulated, clarity alone isn't enough. And that's why I created a simple orientation map. It helps you identify where you're reactive, where you're structurally absorbed, and where you can begin returning without destabilizing your life. It's structural and it's free. And I've linked it below in the description of this video. Use it in the moments where you feel dysregulated and you need a return to home. Because awareness without direction becomes overwhelm. And we're not doing overwhelm anymore. And in the next video, we'll talk about how dysregulation quietly trains you into compliance even when you think you're choosing freely. Because compliance doesn't always feel forced. Sometimes it feels responsible. Because responsibility without regulation becomes submission to the structure. And we're interrupting that pattern. So turn on your notifications if you don't want to miss out. So remember, if you can't slow down without internal panic, you are not yet operating from a place of leverage. And that's not a character flaw. It's a regulation issue. Regulate first, return second, and renegotiate third. That's the order of operations. Like this video, subscribe, and share if you are building with me. Black women first.